So good morning, everybody. I'm Graham Henderson. I'm the CEO here at, is there room lights, folks, so that I could see people? I'm thank you. So very glad to be welcoming you to our business summit, which is one in a very long line that goes back almost 10 years now. Today, in the past year, we've been really, one of the things that we found about this summit that is so important is how people react to the stories that they hear on the stage. And the reaction is inevitably positive. And in many respects, it's the modeling thing, people looking at folks like you and thinking, wow, if she can do it, I can do it. And so we have people walking out of the room thinking, okay, how could I do this? What could I do differently, and so on and so forth. So we want to build on that. And one of the things that we've been doing a lot of chatting about is how to get the universities more involved. So we've had conversations with our friends at Lawrence Kinlan, and Mary Pierce is here today. Hi, Mary. We've had lots of conversations with King's, and we've had conversations with Huron. And I think today we've got a good contingent of students, if I'm not wrong. Would they mind standing? Yeah. So we'd like that to double, to triple, to find a real audience in the universities, in the business schools, to come and meet folks like you, hear your stories, be inspired by your stories. And then we're thinking, okay, how could we build a mentor program on the back of this? How could we make this experience live for students beyond just today? So that's just one of the thoughts that we here at the Chamber are having about this event. We're so grateful for you coming out on a rainy morning. I will now undertake our land acknowledgement and our commitment to truth and reconciliation. As you know, here at the Chamber, we have taken a lot of advice from an Indigenous discussion group that we've been working with now for 2 or 3 years. One of those pieces of advice was to shift, while acknowledging is important, to shift towards speaking about actions, and in the case of businesses, economic reconciliation. So, of course, we recognize that the area in which we gather and work and live is located on the traditional territory of the First Nations that live in the surrounding area. We acknowledge that, and we also want to remind folks that there are treaties that impact this area, and that the area is also subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant. And I urge everyone to take a moment today, after you leave this, to look up what that means. There's tons of stuff online, and it's a very interesting history. In terms of our commitment to reconciliation, we'll linger on this a little bit. We're committed to the process of truth and reconciliation. And as we begin our journey towards reconciliation, it's essential for us to understand what that means and how it looks. Reconciliation is more than admitting mistakes, and we've got very good at doing that. And listening alone, learning stories, hearing stories, is also not enough. It requires action, and that action can take many forms, and it can be personal, it can be professional, and it can be institutional. Your organizations can change. We also acknowledge the historical and ongoing injustices that are faced by the Indigenous people in Canada. We feel responsible to expose and correct misinformation, while also renewing respectful relationships with Indigenous communities through amplifying and uplifting Indigenous voices, stories, knowledge, and community service. And I think I saw Katie Wilhelm here today, who is sitting on our, are you here, Katie? Yeah, there's Katie. She sits on our People and Culture Governance Committee. So there's a commitment at the Chamber to, and it's a response to a request to sort out what Indigenous representation will look like at the governance levels, our board, and our governance committees, and that's something that Katie and I and the others are looking at right now. So reconciliation requires a good relationship to begin with, and I can tell you, and Katie would agree, I think that for 3 years we've been working on it with lots of ways to go. So it requires a good relationship and then striving to reconcile it. For many Indigenous people, there has never been a healthy relationship. Think about that, never. And while inequalities, injustices, and power balances still exist, and they're all around us, we have to take that into account and consider it. But most importantly for us, the settlers, the newcomers, this is going to require love, it's going to require respect, compassion, and empathy. And now is the time for all of us to question our existing beliefs and invest in strong relationships. So, Melissa, I now am, it's my great pleasure to turn it over to Melissa Maloney, who is one of the vice presidents at Tech Alliance and is one of the most important board members that we have. So all of you other board members, plug your ears. She's the most important. No, Melissa has been an absolute dynamo and idea-generating machine, and she's going to be your MC for today.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Graham. How's everyone this morning? Are we good? Yeah. It's 8:23. We'll try that again at about 9:55. So, as Graham said, my name is Melissa Maloney. I'm the Vice President of Tech Alliance, and I'm the co-founder of All Women Lead, and I'm honored to be your MC this morning. Thank you all for joining us for today's summit. This is our 8th year hosting this event, and through these years, we have heard some incredible stories. They've kept us inspired, and we know today will be no exception to that. Today, we have an incredible lineup of speakers, and we hope that you're inspired by their journeys and that you leave here not only with fresh ideas, but also with the encouragement you need to continue to persevere as you work towards scaling up your respective business to greater heights. I'd like to take a moment to recognize all of our amazing sponsors for their contributions towards this event. Our sponsors this year include an amazing list of companies. Please hold your applause to the end. Our gold sponsor is General Dynamics Land System Canada. Our silver sponsor, Lawrence Kinland School for Business at Fanshawe College. Our bronze sponsors, CertaPro Painters, High Street Asset Management, and Summit Properties. Our brand sponsor, the branding firm Inc., and our panel sponsor, All Women Lead. And of course, our principal sponsor. A big thank you to Labatt Brewery, London. To bring you greetings from our principal sponsor, please welcome to the stage Ryan Ems, District Sales Manager of Labatt Brewery.
Spotlight here. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Graham. And thank you to everyone to come out to the summit today. As mentioned, I'm Ryan Ems, part of the London team here at Labatt. Today, we're talking about Canadian businesses that can scale up, something Labatt knows plenty about. In addition to being Canada's leading beverage company, Labatt is one of Canada's most established businesses. In addition, our roots go back 176 years. To a single small brewery founded by John Kinder Labatt right here in London. And today we are a national beverage company with over 3,600 employees from coast to coast with multiple breweries across the country. How did we get here? John Labatt's entrepreneurial spirit was certainly part of it. It took vision, strategy, innovation, community involvement, forward thinking, but it took a lot more than just that. Finding, joining, and fostering businesses, communities was also essential. Sharing success stories, asking perspective challenges, peers helping peers, true collaboration. A recent example of this is how we work together with industry partners like restaurant owners, retailers, and Beer Canada to leverage our network of agency partners and government relations to fight the excise tax. If you're not familiar, the federal alcohol escalator tax was initiated in 2017 and it automatically ties tax increases to inflation. This automatic increase is not voted on and carries far-reaching consequences for Canadian consumers, and businesses and alcohol producers. And it was set to increase 4.7% at the start of this month, which has been the highest amount it's ever been raised in 40 years. But thanks to our combined efforts, government chose to freeze the rate at 2% for the next 2 years, up until March 1st, 2026. We are able to accomplish this a huge win for our industry, all the businesses that rely on our industry, and the Canadian consumer, because we work together for the greater good. Much like all of you, we want to grow our businesses, both here and beyond, and contribute to the country's economic future. On that note, I am delighted to welcome the guest speakers today and eager to hear the successes and challenges faced by those kind enough to share their stories today. I can't wait to learn from all of you, and with that, I'll hand it back to Melissa to kick things off.
So a fun Labatt story. When my grandfather immigrated to Canada, he moved to Grey Street, and he used to tell me stories about selling newspapers to Mr. Labatt when he was 8 years old, because he never went to school once he got here. So really, the London circle always comes back around. So I am super excited to start our business for the day. As you may know, and as you've seen on the agenda, we are going to run through this event straight through with no breaks so that we can get you out of here at a reasonable time. Without further ado, we are going to get started. So get comfy, grab a pen if you are a note taker, and get ready to hear about some entrepreneurial success stories of some 4 amazing individuals who know all about scaling up. Joining us this morning are Allison Salverda from eSupply Canada, Asha Parekh from Frontline Medical Technologies, Pam Bains from Microcad Computer Corporation, and Joel McLean from Infotech. It does deserve a round of applause. So first this morning, we have Allison Salverda, who will be sharing with us eSupply Canada's story. Allison is stepping in this morning for the founder of eSupply, as he had a meeting that he had to get to that he couldn't miss. So she gets the extra big round of applause when we pull her up here for being the stand-in. So we're really grateful for that. Here's what you need to know about Allison. Allison is the manager of public procurement at eSupply Canada. She is responsible for managing a team of procurement specialists, ensuring efficient and effective execution of procurement processes, and driving the development of high-quality proposals for government contracts. Allison advances eSupply Canada's influence within the procurement landscape and actively seeks opportunities to expand the organization's reach across all levels of Canadian government and the broader public sector. By leveraging innovative strategies and fostering collaborative relationships with key stakeholders, she strengthens eSupply Canada's reputation as a trusted partner in procurement excellence. Please join me as I welcome to stage Allison Salverda.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks so much for being here today. As Melissa mentioned, my name is Allison Salverda, and I'm the manager of public procurement at eSupply Canada. eSupply Canada was created by our founder and CEO, Stephen Van Lawfold, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here today, which is why I'm filling in. Stephen is a Saugeen First Nation Anishinaabe, and his home territory is located on the southern shore of Lake Huron. Steve previously served as a former band counselor in his community, and during his time on council, he saw 4 main issues: First, many Indigenous communities have very few businesses located within them, and therefore lots of revenue leaves these communities because individuals are used to use companies from outside the territory because there's no other options to get supplies. So this means there's a large amount of economic leakage occurring, and Steve noticed this was the case across First Nations in Canada. As well, many companies are developing within Indigenous territories, but due to lack of businesses within these communities, Indigenous peoples aren't able to take advantage of that development and be a part of it. And fourth, the federal government has a 5% Indigenous spend mandate that's now in place, and they're having challenges meeting this. So that's where eSupply Canada comes in. We're an Indigenous-owned national distributor of office, janitorial, industrial, technology, and print marketing supplies. We carry over 1 million products from over 1,000 leading manufacturers. We centralize everything that a business needs to operate, so we really are that one-stop shop where you can get anything and everything from us. This allows both government and industry to meet their environmental, social, and corporate governance, or ESG goals. We have fulfillment centers in British Columbia, Alberta, Ontario, and Quebec, and we lean on our suppliers and vendors who have over 100 years of combined experience. We're able to provide coverage from office to work site, home office, and anywhere in between. And we typically have 1 to 2 day shipping to arrive to our customers. We use a drop ship model where we never have to touch the product. So through creating these close partnerships with our vendors, it allows for us to have very little overhead costs, and in turn allows for us to have low pricing so we can compete with big box stores. Our target customers are First Nations across Canada, which contain over 50,000 Indigenous businesses within these territories, and as well as almost 500 major corporations that have current or planned major natural resource projects within Indigenous territories, as well as government and the broader public sector, which is currently doing less than 1% of their business with Indigenous companies. As I previously mentioned, there's now a new 5% Indigenous spend mandate that's in place, and all federal departments must meet this. So there's a great opportunity here for us as an Indigenous business to be part of this and help the government meet these targets. What I do specifically at eSupply Canada as the manager of public procurement is oversee our request for proposals, or RFP department. I actively monitor new government opportunities for us to bid on to supply governments at all different levels, from federal, provincial, and municipal, with a wide variety of supplies that they need to function. We do proposal writing for requests that have gone out for tender, as well as participate in low dollar value procurement, where the government is able to sole source items under a certain threshold. We're now also expanding to give First Nation communities an online platform that's branded to their community. This online platform gives them full access to our supply chain and gives these communities a vehicle to drive sales and address economic leakage. The aim of this platform is to allow these Indigenous communities to be able to purchase all of the supplies that they need to operate their own local government through their own online store. This platform will net back to them a certain percentage of their spend that they can now reinvest back into their own community. This is also a platform that we'll eventually be selling a subscription-based model for to the average Canadian who's looking to find a way to gain some extra income while never having to touch the product. Canadians will have the opportunity to set up their own online store and be responsible for promoting their products, while having our team on the back end that will be responsible for pushing through all online orders through our already established supply chain. But eSupply Canada was really founded with the mission to give back. One of the ways we do this is through our eSupply Future Leaders Development Fund. This is a program where 1% of all of our sales go to and is given to an Indigenous student pursuing post-secondary education in business, economics, law, and the trades. And the focus was on these subjects specifically because we wanted to support the growth in fields that don't currently have a large number of Indigenous peoples in them. Just during my time at eSupply, I've seen tremendous growth and change And we have had to pivot directions a few times and took some time to really figure out our place within this area of business, and have now really begun to see the positive effects of the direction we're currently headed. During my work here, we've been able to get many different government contracts, and that's felt like an amazing accomplishment. Although it is very intimidating and challenging to be competing against large big box retailers, it feels very rewarding to be able to provide our customers with great products at competitive pricing with excellent customer service, all while giving back to Indigenous communities. One main challenge that we have faced is having difficulty when trying to have large businesses or entities take us on as a new supplier. Many instances have happened where potential customers are afraid to try something new and don't want to disturb what they're already doing. Another challenge is many companies have made commitments to supplier diversity. However, these commitments are not always being lived up to, and there's very little accountability within these corporations to ensure that their supply chain is in fact diverse. I also believe that this is due to individuals not truly understanding the importance of Indigenous reconciliation and not actively trying to participate in this reconciliation. However, we are extremely fortunate to have had some very large corporations take a chance on us, and they've turned into great customers and fantastic relationships have been formed. Our team has grown in a few different ways, and finding the core team was absolutely essential for our success. And having a group of individuals who are enthusiastic about supporting and giving back to Indigenous communities feels amazing to be around, and I can say I'm very proud to be part of this organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, for sharing eSupply's story with us. And if we're looking at actions we can all easily take away today, by supporting an organization like eSupply, you're not only supporting small business, but you're also supporting Indigenous reconciliation. So as somebody who is a customer of eSupply, I highly recommend their services as well. Joining us next is the co-founder and CEO at Frontline Medical Technologies, Dr. Asha Parekh. Asha has a PhD in biomedical engineering from Western University, and after completing 2 postdoctoral fellowships, she decided to take a leap of faith and jump into the entrepreneurial world and co-founded Frontline. Frontline was created to support her co-invention of a life-saving medical device called Cobra OS, which prevents patients from bleeding out in emergency situations. Asha is passionate about medical device innovation and is driven to help make a global impact with Frontline as they continue to grow and scale to help more patients. Asha is also active in women in engineering and entrepreneurial communities and regularly engages with various groups to discuss her views and experiences in these spaces. Please join me as I welcome to the stage Dr. Asha Parekh.
Good morning. Oh, it is a bright light up here. I'm a little short, so I'm going to do that. Thank you, Melissa, for the great introduction. As Melissa mentioned, I am Asha, and I am co-founder and CEO of Frontline Medical Technologies. And I do have my PhD from biomedical engineering right here at Western University, and I was born and raised in Ottawa, actually our lovely capital city, but London is very much home now. And but my journey here started from me wanting to come to Western and pursue my degree at Western Engineering. I started in biochemical engineering and then went on to do my graduate studies in biomedical engineering. And like many other students and people that go to Western, you know, although I will say purple is not my color, but I am a very loud and proud purple Mustang and probably always will be. And I'm not saying this to tell you more about myself, but you know, that's part of my background, and as we're here today talking about, creating conditions to help businesses scale, that is where my journey started at Western Engineering. And it wasn't a company that was attracted to London, which we talk about in many venues and is still, obviously happens and is great. But there are building blocks and obviously a funnel that creates some of these opportunities. And mine was from engineering. It was my relationships and network during my PhD that actually gave me the opportunity to do the Medical Innovation Fellowship, which is where I met Dr. Adam Power, who is my co-founder and business partner at Frontline. And if we stop and think about that, Frontline was created by both of us, and it also required him to be attracted to London as an innovative clinician and, bringing that together, and that's how Frontline started. I just want to say that, we've kind of touched on it, and Graham did in the opening remarks as well, as getting universities involved and at those points that are different along the way. I think that, ideally we could create the funnels to, from the beginning to the end, and we all know things don't always work out that way. But, I guess to the point of today's session is that, we can build and hopefully create those moments for the next opportunity, the next milestone, and it can't stop at the scale-up phase. London has so much to offer. And I'm here to tell you a bit about the story about our London-born company, and which started by creating our London-born product, the Cobra OS. So the Cobra, what is the Cobra? The Cobra is a medical device that essentially prevents patients from bleeding out in emergency situations, and that's oversimplifying things, and it actually works in a variety of different applications, but that is the premise of the device. And I'll just say that we started in the world of trauma. Unfortunately, the bleeding that we're targeting is internal bleeding, so it's non-compressible hemorrhage, not something that you could put a tourniquet on an extremity. And the unfortunate statistic is that somebody that suffers from that type of bleeding outside of a hospital has about a 10% chance of making it to a hospital. And so that is truly the drive that started it, and then we've built out since then. And so what pushed us to commercialize this? Because I will tell you, both Adam and I had several other med tech projects that we had kind of going at the time, and we may file patents on them, we may do other things and kind of slowly move them along. And what really pushed us to do this, and it really was our passion to help people and create an impact. It checked all the boxes, and there may have been other ones that checked some of the other boxes, but this really drove the impact side of things. And, starting from the onset, I will say one of the things that I think has helped us be successful is the team. And we always hear about how important team is. And, I always say one of the first good decision I made was choosing Adam. And if you ask him, he'll say he chose me. So, we'll settle and say we chose each other. But that's really how it came together at the beginning. But that in itself is so important because of how we work together. And then that also allowed us to, put that forward to as we grew our team and as we continue to grow our team, I should say, because we have been super choosy about who we bring on. And one of those reasons, I'll get into the details of how it is starting a medtech company and life sciences focus things shortly, but we have a super long path to market. And early on, it is incredibly powerful and important to be efficient. And, we wanted and still want people to align with our mission and our vision, and also how we work. And so that was extremely important. Efficiency is always a good thing. Maybe there's instances where it's not, but usually efficiency is known to be a good thing, and especially at a time where and we have a path to market that can vary, and again, I'll get into that shortly, but we're not making any money during that time, and you're typically spending a lot of money during that time. It's extremely, extremely important. I have to say, I'll tap ourselves on the back a little bit. A number of times that I've heard people in business meetings talking about Frontline and saying, you will be astonished at what Frontline has accomplished with their resources in this amount of time and with this amount of money. And that has really helped us, and that is part of how we have come to where we are today. And to make that first dollar, let's talk about that stage now a little bit. We work in a space where you need regulatory approval to make that first dollar, and what that entails is usually, depending on the risk of your device, that what we need to submit to regulatory bodies, it's dependent on the class of your device, and that is associated with a risk level. And, it makes sense. We're putting these medical devices on, around, in human beings and patients like us that may need it at some point. We want it to be safe, we want it to be effective, but that truly does. And to give you an idea, for a middle class, not the lowest class risk or the highest class, but a middle class, which is where we lie, that typically takes several years and several millions of dollars. And so, there's a big investment there. So when we're asked about how important it is to have our company capitalized, extremely important, especially in those early stages. We chose, and everyone has a different risk threshold and strategies, but we did not hit that go button until we had raised enough money to get through our regulatory testing. And again, to clarify what that means is our testing would be done that would allow us to submit to, in our case, FDA and Health Canada. They would then give us the approval, and that is what enables us to potentially make our first dollar. So what happened if something went wrong? What happens if testing fails? From a funding perspective, we obviously, had a buffer implemented. But what really happens is you can be in a situation where you have to redo testing, or potentially even go back to the drawing board and maybe change the design, which sounds maybe easy, but it actually entails a lot to go back to that first phase. And you probably can easily understand that you can get into a very iterative situation, and that can be very prolonged. And as we know, time equals money. And in these situations, it's not just the time and money of you having to redo the testing, because that in itself is another cost, but you're also extending that path to market where you can make your first dollar. So it's almost like a double impact there. I will say we're very lucky, and we did not have to do that. We got through in our first round, but also to a little bit more detail there is that when we, from the concept, when Adam and I created this proof of concept prototype, and we're like, oh my God, this can work and we can try to help save people. We're doing it like once, we're doing some bench testing. For regulatory testing, it's like on the scale of 100, for example, and you have to pass every single one. You cannot, it's a very different regulated ball game that you cannot, waver on. So that is why it is increasingly difficult for some companies to get through to that stage. So I'm skipping so many things here, I apologize, but we are very thankful, and it is such a huge milestone for life science companies to get that stamp of approval, and we were and are so proud of that, of course, to get our approvals, but it obviously doesn't stop there, and we're at that point now. So going through our journey, we have our regulatory approvals, and now what? Great. Well, we have to sell this thing. We have to, and lots of them, because now we poured a whole bunch of money into getting our approval, and we really need to get it out there. But I'll tell you, the moment that we had our first, let's say, order, and the Cobra was sitting on the shelf somewhere, that moment was, oh my gosh, this thing that we created is going to save a life in the real world. oh my gosh, it's actually sitting out there. Because let's remember, these are emergency situations. They have to be lined on the shelf. You can't order it at the time you need it. And so it was, a whole other moment when it was used for the first time. Like, oh my gosh, this device we created saved a life. That was truly, truly something, we'll never forget. And then it was on more shelves, and then it was more shelves, and it's saving more and more lives. And I'm so happy to say it continues to do so, and we're so grateful to be in that position. And from the business side of things, that obviously meant we were starting to generate revenue, which is great. So there was finally some money coming in, and that is a great situation to be in, of course. And as we continue to grow, then it became to a point where, okay, well, we can actually run our company off of our revenue. Again, super great, love it. But is that really the goal? Is that really the end point? Okay, well, we have a running company and we just want to run it. That was never really, our goal per se. And, not to say that that's bad or good or whatnot, but what really, that pushed us to scale, and what allowed us to scale was obviously the ability to do so. But looking at our mission is to help people, and our mission is literally to help critical patients survive, which truly could be any one of us. And we're a very proud Canadian company, but that obviously goes beyond North America. And so that means pushing our boundaries geographically into other parts of the world, which is what we're doing, and also into different clinical applications, because as I slightly mentioned, the Cobra can be used for various different patient populations, and we want to help as many people as possible. And so that is really what pushed us to scale up and say, we don't want to stop here. We're, even though we have a company that is running well, we want to help as many people as possible. I will wrap up soon, I promise. But talking about this, I've talked a little bit about how med tech companies work, and life sciences in general. It's the same for pharma. They have an even longer path to market typically. But it is that beginning phase that is so hard. That startup phase where you are not able to make any money to help your company move along. And so because it takes that much time and money, resources to get your stamp of approval to sell, that really is a big hurdle for med tech companies. And so unfortunately, we do see a lot of companies not get through that stage, and let alone that to get to a point where you can scale up. We have to get through that really, really tough part. And so, I will say, life science companies need help. We need the support of this amazing community, and continuing to work together to try to help more and more companies get there, so that we can also help them scale up. And I want to say I am super happy to see a lot of new programs that shine a light on this and try to take different angles, such as having an IP focus. There's a lot of intellectual property focus for these companies that can maybe help support in different ways. So that is great, and I look forward to seeing more of that. And I also want to say every project is different. We, from concept to where we are, took things a certain way, and that might not be what works for somebody else, and that's obviously okay. And every project has multiple ways that it can be executed, and you just have to find a way to do it. And there's so much support around here to do so. There's not one right way, right? Our journey was great. We were able to, from concept to now scaling up, get the funding, get through that startup phase, get our approvals, and are on the path to spreading out. And we are so thankful for all of the support we've received along the way. We have such a great community here in London, you know, and when I tell people that I came to London and to go to university, to go to Western Engineering, and I stayed, it's never a surprise. I'm sure you all have heard it too. It's like, oh, I came to Western and then I essentially stayed, and I usually get back, oh, I hear that from a lot of people, you know, and I mean, that is what London does. We are able to do that. So I really hope that we continue to do that well, and you know, further support in helping people stay at a point if you're looking to scale your business as well. So in our efforts to scale our scaling businesses, because that's really what we're trying to do here, I do look forward to more sharing, more learning, and executing, of course, to help affect more positive change in that way. And I hope you're as excited as I am to see what's to come for London, and I look forward to more conversations with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asha, for sharing your journey with us. That was absolutely amazing. And I think one of the things that I wrote down was just around the fact of making money isn't the reason you start the company. So it's sticking to that why and remembering why we got into it in the first place. Next, I am excited to introduce to you Pam Bains. Pam is a visionary entrepreneur and the esteemed CEO of Microcad Computer Corporation, a leading nationwide distributor of technology and IT support services since 1991. Pam has steered Microcad to unparalleled heights, cementing its reputation as a cornerstone in the tech industry, from a home-based business now to a top-performing technology distributor in Canada with a 20,000 square foot office located right in London, Ontario. Under her guidance, Microcad has flourished into a powerhouse catering to a diverse clientele, including large retailers, educational institutions, and corporate entities. Pam's journey is not only marked by professional success, but also by her role as a devoted mother to two accomplished adult children. Her son, Aaron Bains, serves as the Chief Information Officer at Microcad, while her daughter, Kieran Bains, contributes her expertise as a faculty member at the prestigious Ivy Institute. A trailblazer in her field, Pam's leadership is distinguished by her unwavering commitment to excellence and innovation. Her dedication has been recognized with prestigious accolades, including the Queen's Jubilee Award and the Chamber's 2022 Large Business of the Year, which was bestowed upon Microcad, a testament to Pam's exceptional leadership and the company's outstanding contributions to the business landscape. Please join me as we welcome Pam to the stage.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Pam Bains. It's really bright, this light. Yes, I'm the CEO of Microcad since 1991. So I don't think this morning I'm really going to follow my notes. I'm just going to share my story, and I hope my story motivates and inspires everybody. Because at the end of the day, we all, whatever kind of business we start, you know, we all are looking for success and growth and learning along the way. So, yeah, I started in 1990. Well, let me tell you, originally I'm from England, UK, born and bred. And I came over with my parents from a very humble background. It wasn't by choice we came to Canada. It was actually quite a tragedy in my life that happened. And so we ended up, you know, due to my young brother passing away, we ended up moving to Canada. So I started working at TD Bank. I'm not going to stand here and tell you a fantastic success story, because it wasn't that way, at that point anyway. So I came with my parents and got into an arranged marriage, and you know, that's how it was in those days, and emigrated to Canada in 1986. And after working for TD, I've always been a real passionate and strong individual. You know, my parents always brought me up in a way that there was nothing I couldn't do. You know, I was one of the youngest of 9, so I always had this strength within myself that I could do whatever I put myself up to. My parents always inspired me. You know, my mom would say to people, you know what, you need help, any lawyer help, or any kind of help, just ask Pam. You know, my mom just thought I was like the master of everything. So having that kind of inspiration in my life, as I grew up, I always believed in myself. I had a real passion. And I never really thought I'd be in business, to be quite honest. So when I came to Canada, got married, had 2 little kids. You know, being a mom and running a business didn't go incredibly well for me. You know, so I actually quit TD because I was pregnant with my son, Aaron. And I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Truly, I thought this is going to be fantastic. You know, I'm going to homeschool my child, but you know what? It was so boring. All you ever did was sleep. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is boring, and my energy and the passion I had just didn't match to be a stay-at-home mom. So I started building a computer, believe it or not. I got a case, a motherboard, put in a CPU, put in the RAM, and I started to sell that on to local, you know, the London Free Press. I started from home, so at this point, I'm home with a 2-year-old running a little computer shop, right, in the living room. And believe it or not, you know, in anything in life, if you have passion and you believe in yourself, it's a success. Trust me, it really is. Because I want to start telling my story in a humble way, because that's how my life started out. Really kind of simple, just trying to, you know, be a good mom and a good person. And well, I had this skill I didn't know. I had the skill of marketing. I was able to, you know, believe in the product that I had. I started marketing, advertising. I was really good in English. English was my major at school, so I was good at writing. And I started putting ads in the local London Free Press. Believe it or not, my front room was busy as heck. All right, it was so busy, I couldn't believe on a Saturday I had a little kid crawling around, and my business was just, you know, people coming in to buy. And then from there, of course you can't run a business like that at home in the living room, right? I had to go into a smaller retail space. On Warncliffe Road, London, Ontario, I bought a small retail space, and I had to hire a technician who was building for me, because I had this strength and ability to be able to sell computers to people. I knew technology at the time. I self-taught myself. And I contacted Fanshawe College one day, and they put in a purchase order. And I was like, oh, I got my first purchase order. I was so excited. It just made my day that I did this, you know. And so having already that ability to be passionate and having that strength and, you know, and thinking I could just reach whatever height I wanted, things like this, little things today, maybe, okay, I got a big purchase order, now I'm getting millions of purchase orders. But at that point, it was something that grew me to believe more and more in myself. So, of course, I didn't really have much Canadian experience at all in business, right? And in those days, remember, there was no internet, right? So when we were quoting people or doing business without internet, we were doing very, very well. We were growing into different colleges and different universities. But at that point, I was still doing retail sales. I still had the mentality of doing, you know, from B2C kind of mentality. And I decided I wanted to do wholesale distribution. I didn't really want to do more B2C. So from the small little retail location, it was me and one technician. We grew into the old, I don't know if you guys, most of you guys are Londoners, the McLean building on McGregor Avenue, which is now, we grew into, I brought that 5,000 square feet, and we grew into that. Within 5 years, I had 20 technicians, I had 5 salespeople, and it grew into selling to retail stores. So computer stores across North America were starting to buy. So I kind of dropped that vision of doing B2C. I started doing more B2B. That's when the business just grew really, really well. So, but then along comes more competition, right? Everybody knows what that feels like. So we were competing with the Best Buys and the Future Shops and stuff like that. So going into distribution kind of made differentiated us from just being a regular IT provider to being a distributor. And then from there, so that was close to 4 years ago, literally, right? We outgrew the 5,000 square feet. We didn't have enough space. If you came to see Pam, I was behind some boxes and whatever, and eventually, you could see me. It was overwhelming. We had large orders going out to Best Buy, going to North America, going to USA, Fry's Canada, large computer stores. Staples was buying from us. So, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know what? This is impossible to do business here. We're like building computers on the floor. We're getting orders. We're packing orders, in spaces. There just wasn't enough space. So then, believe it or not, but I decided to go for a walk on White Oaks Road, well, a drive, and I saw this beautiful building, and it's 4015 White Oaks Road is where we are right now. It was a 20,000 square foot building. And I thought, I'm going to go in. It looks pretty safe. There's only one car in there. And there was an older Italian gentleman in there, and he started screaming at me. He thought I was a realtor. And I'm like, no, I'm not a realtor. I love your building. And he goes, oh, you do? Oh, come on in. So he was really, really excited to show me around because apparently he had built this building. It was his building, and they were doing doors and windows in it, right? So, and it was empty. It was really odd. It was empty. And I was like, wow, you're not working on Saturday? The building industry's so busy. And he goes, no, I have a sad story. So he shared this sad story. I'm not going to share it because the gentleman has passed away, but it was a sad story. So I told him, I said, I love your building. And he goes, you know what? If you want to buy it, here's a handshake. And I do not believe in lawyers or anything. I'm 80 years old, and my handshake means this building's yours. And we agreed on a number. I walked out with the purchase of that building with a handshake. I went home and I told my kids, and the kids go, Mom, what did you do? We've already got the 5,000 square foot building. We haven't even sold it. Again, you know what? When you are positive in life, positive things come your way. Honestly, they do, right? So, yeah, it was like a big, heavy thing I was carrying. So something just came to me, dawned on me. You know what? Honda down the road on Warncliffe Road looks like he's growing a lot. I called Honda, and the front desk people like, who do you want to speak to the owner for? For what reason? I'm like, I'd just like to speak to him. I've got a building he might be interested in. We'll let you know. They weren't going to call back, were they? Well, guess what happened? 2 weeks later, the owner comes in, and he goes, I believe you've been seeking for me. I'm interested in seeing your building. Within 3 weeks, he signed an offer between me and him, and he purchased it, and I moved into a 20,000 square foot building. So that's where we are today. And I have my son, Aaron Bains, which Melissa already shared. He was an Ivy graduate. He is now running a business with me. He is the CIO. And I'm hoping to retire soon. I don't know if it'll happen with my kind of energy, power. It's kind of hard. Every year I say I'm going to retire, but I don't because I really, really love what I do. And that is something else I want to share. Choose something you really love to do. Because if you do something just for the sake of the money or because that other person was really good at it and you think you are, it's mostly not going to succeed. All the time I've run the company, I've always believed in people. Humanity has been a big, big thing for me because this business, I stand here, talk about the business and how it grew and everything, but I had great people along my side. I went through a divorce through this whole time too, and it was a bitter divorce with little kids, and I ended up alone bringing that business and bringing up 2 incredibly young people. Again, because I believed that my children would become an example of what I did through diversity, difficulty, that we would become something one day. Having that belief in myself, and the integrity of when I dealt with people, employees, I really cared about people. I cared about those employees like they were my own. They were family to me. They weren't just employees that I was giving a salary to. Some of those employees are still with me today, and they can stand and tell this story better than I can. And the love and admiration I have gathered from the people and my customers has made me who I am today. So, thank you, everybody.
Wow. I'm just going to sum it up with that. Thank you, Pam, so much for sharing your story with us today. Really, really grateful. Now I get to introduce our next speaker for the day. Joel McLean founded Infotech Research Group to help CIOs and large organizations successfully manage complex technology projects, run successful IT departments, and lead digital transformations for their organizations. Infotech's doors opened in 1997 with a small group of employees. Today, with nearly 1,300 employees, offices in Canada, the US, and Australia, and a global membership of over 30,000 clients, Infotech Research Group is one of the world's leading information technology research and advisory firms right out of London, Ontario. As a recognized leader in the research industry, Joel is frequently invited to speak in public and private executive forums on IT issues and business entrepreneurship. He is a graduate of the Richard Ivey School of Business and an avid science fiction fan, and we are so grateful that he is with us today. Welcome, Joel, to the stage.
Hello. I'd like to start off with the notion that you can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. To start and scale a successful business, you really need three things. First of all, you need to be lucky. Being born in the right place with the right time is absolutely critical to launch a successful business. If you think of people like, Zuckerberg or Bezos, born 5 years earlier or later, they would not be running the businesses they are. So I think no matter how smart you think you are, there is a degree of being lucky that's important to everyone. The second thing you need that I think is really important is to be good with people. Authentically caring about your customers and your staff and the people you work with is something that people can tell. And I believe it's those relationships with people are an essential part of any successful organization that's going to grow. Third, and probably most importantly, you need to work extremely hard. I think the minimum is, at least 4 days a week that you're willing to put in at about 12 hours a day. There's really just no substitution for hard work. And work-life balance really isn't something that should exist, I think, for an early startup or for an organization that's in hypergrowth. Now, you're probably wondering about my sexy headgear. And it's not just a fashion statement. It's actually been a hell of a week. I was at my father's 90th birthday just 10 days ago, and somehow I managed to fall down 20-some-odd stairs. Yeah. Woke up in the MRI room, no memory of what happened. Managed to hit my head so hard. I managed to fracture my skull, broke my nose, broke my collarbone, and fractured a few vertebrae here as well. So good times. So 5 days in the hospital, though, tends to make you introspective. And it really gives you some time to think as well. Don't get hurt on a long weekend, or at least the start of it. It's not a great time to go to the hospital. So as I was lying there for 5 days thinking, not moving, kind of panicked, hoping, that everything was going to be fine, a couple things came to mind. Number one, dying at my dad's 90th birthday would have been some kind of world record for the worst birthday present ever. The second thing I ended up thinking about is the fact that everyone in every position always balances where they're spending their time. And I feel that everyone's overtaxed to some degree. We all have work, we have family, we have friends, we have health, we have kids, hobbies, TV, chores, the list is endless. And I got to thinking, if that was the end for me in the stairs, did I spend my time well? What should I have done differently, and what do I have to do differently moving forward? And while this will be different for everyone, for me, I believe that there's a time for all season. Over the last 27 years, I've put infotech first. I've worked long hours. I've put my kids second, and I wouldn't change that. I'm happy with the way I spent my time. The second thing I thought about is that it's really essential to enjoy the climb. My kids actually did a school presentation where they had to recite the Miley Cyrus song, The Climb. Some of you probably know it. It's not about how fast you get there. It's not about getting to the other side. It's about the climb. And frankly, I think it's really insightful. You've got to enjoy the process, because it's not really about the destination. A lot of other people spoke. It's not about the money. You have to enjoy doing the work. You have to enjoy working with the team that you have. And I think you really have to, enjoy, feel proud of, what you're accomplishing for your customers. I think that's essential to have satisfaction in what you're doing. And finally, this last one's a little bit weird, might come off a little selfish in terms of epiphanies, but the thing that I always put last, frankly, was myself. I think a lot of people do that. I was always good about my obligations. Work always came first, the kids came second. I haven't always focused on me. So one of my line in the hospital epiphanies was, at least one day a month, I'm going to try and focus on me. And not like a day watching TV or doing nothing, but really thinking of it as something that's fulfilling for me. And I think a lot of people could stand to put themselves first. I mean, don't go home to your significant other and tell them how, you're coming first. I'd suggest putting them first, but everyone deserves a day where it can just be about them. And while many of you probably find my existential musings somewhat interesting, what we're really here to talk about is about the growth path that we've had as a company. And so to do that, I've really got it broken up in my mind in a number of phases. The first phase, of course, is the startup phase. The second phase for me was a phase of what I call unrelenting persistence. The third phase is about value above everything. And the fourth phase is about growth and the ability to scale. So for me in the startup phase, my story, I think, began with my father, of all things, which seems to be a theme of this speech. So my dad was actually the head of data processing for a firm called Davison Henderson, which is a large checking company. Works a lot with banks. They used to print all the checks back in the day. So as a kid, I grew up pushing punch cards from mainframes around this factory, and listening to my dad talk about his little technology projects and understanding that sometimes technology projects go wrong. I spent time at a computer camp as a kid, ran an online dial-up bulletin board, pretty dorky, all things considered across the board. Went to business school at Ivy, which I think was an incredibly valuable experience. I learned so much about running a business there. And when I graduated, I considered a lot of different things. Wrote numerous business plans on all kinds of things, but it really wasn't rocket science to understand that technology advisory was an attractive and growing space. When I graduated in '97, this was pretty close to the start of the internet, 96, 97, right in that space. And so, I understood, or I was lucky, back to luck, that I knew my dad and I knew his banking CIO buddies. And I think I was clearer earlier than most people that old people aren't great at executing with technology. And so I decided that there's probably a lot of senior people in data processing organizations or older people that don't understand fully the implications of the internet and what it could be and the implications it would have on business, public service, and consumers worldwide. And so, with that in mind, I endeavored to start a business right out of university early on. I'd encourage everyone to start early. to advise organizations on how the internet and technology could affect their business. And that early value proposition was really simple, and necessarily because of the resources I had as a graduating student were far from, plentiful, let's put it that way. And so I started out with this notion that I would write a summary, 20 pages of, 10 articles about the most important things going on in technology, and I'd do that every 2 weeks. And I'd summarize important things and try and help leaders at these organizations, whether businesses or public services, public sector, understand technology and how it might help them as an organization. And like a good business school grad, I started with a market test. So I wrote up first 20 pages of articles about how the internet might affect and databases and technology and what have you. And I simply started calling CIOs of cities and large organizations and asking them to have a look at this functionally newsletter at that point that we produced. And so I sent this newsletter to like 300 different customers or potential customers and asked them for feedback. And so from that point on, I started what I like to refer to as the world's worst book report. So every 2 weeks, I owed 20 pages summarizing on 10 different topics, summarizing the most important things about technology. And I would share that every 2 weeks, I would share that functionally newsletter with these customers who are giving me feedback in terms of whether it was valuable, whether it was useful, or how it was helpful. And that's really how Infotech started. At the end of, let's call it 3 issues or 6 weeks, I asked some of those customers, would you like to purchase this functionally newsletter at that time? And out of the first 300 or so customers, close to 30 of them, under 30, sadly, but close to 30, said yes to this $279 biweekly newsletter, and thus Infotech was launched. And the early days were really fascinating. So one, that was like a gigantic pain in the ass, writing this newsletter every 2 weeks. It was an incredible amount of work. But some of the things we got to do at that time were fascinating. Probably the most memorable is calling up like large cities, Fortune 500 firms, and explaining to them, there's this awesome new thing. It's called email. It's like your fax machine, but really awesome. And so we had these little methodologies of how one could actually go about launching email within your organization. And so it was really early days that I was doing that. And so that's how we started out. Some of the lessons I learned across that startup phase, there were a lot, to tell you the truth. As many mistakes, I think, as there were successes. But my first job, I'll speak, I think, first about my first job. My first job was actually teaching a course called Business 2257, I think it's now called, which is a financial and management accounting course run by the Western University. And as part of that course, one of the things I got to teach was how to write a business plan. And by the way, teaching was one of my favorite jobs. It's just, it's so fulfilling to stand up and talk to people every 2 weeks, or every day, and so I love that job. But as part of that job, one of the things we taught was, of course, how to write these business plans. And I still remember, there's 4 things that we used to say, and there's a lot that goes into writing a good business plan, picking the right initiative, but when I used to teach it, it came down to, there's a short summary, which is 4 things, which I'd like to share with you today. The first is sellability. I know that's a made-up word, but it's really a function of a question of how motivated are people to give you money. In the very early stages of a startup, one of the hardest things you need to do is generate revenue to pay for growth, for product development, for all the next steps. And so one of the first things we encouraged everyone to think long and hard about is how easy is it to sell your product? Is it beer at the ACC Center during a playoff game? Is it something people need? How hard is it, and how will you drive revenue? Sort of the first question you need to answer. The second thing I encourage people to think about was scalability. After you begin your business and you make those first few scales, what is your plan to scale? How does your organization grow? It's a lot of hard work to develop a value proposition, to build a supply chain, to feed it, and to take all the steps. So you need a very clear plan on how you're going to scale that organization once you get it off the ground. The third thing I encouraged everyone to understand was you need to understand the cost structure. Financial literacy, I think, is one of those things that I think is critical for any business owner. Understanding variable costs versus fixed costs, cash flows, is essential to making pragmatic and effective decision making. Cost-benefit analysis. You want to be financially literate so that you understand and can project, will my cash flow be sufficient? Am I selling at good contribution rates? So investing some time in some basic management accounting is one of the most important recommendations I think I could give to any budding entrepreneur. And finally, the fourth thing is what I used to call the one biggest thing. Because there's always one biggest thing that's going to make your idea work or make it not work. And so understanding and identifying what that one biggest thing is early on is essential, I think, to getting through the startup phase successfully. That said, in a reasonable industry, all businesses, I believe, are viable with hard work. The second mistake I think I made during the startup phase was not finding a mentor. I sort of chugged it out myself. I worked really hard across that period. I think if I had taken the time to find a mentor across the first 5 years, I could have really accelerated and improved. I've gotten through a lot of things I had to learn by trial and error. So the second phase for me as on our journey was the phase of what I call unrelenting persistence. Because immediately and consistently, anytime you start a business, things will not go to plan. When you finally get things working, something in the marketplace will change, and I think you really need to expect it. One of the most important skills, I think, is resilience, and an idea or the notion that you really have to work hard and expect things to just not go right at first, and be ready to iterate continually to make things work. So for us as an organization, scaling was not super easy and it wasn't super fast, but I was really motivated. When I started out, of course, I had this book report from hell every 2 weeks where I had to produce 20 pages of something new that we didn't write about before in technology, and that was hard. And so I was really motivated to find and build a professional sales team. And at first I was really excited. I was under the impression that, when I actually got professional salespeople, that things would just take off. That, I obviously didn't know what I was doing when it came to selling things. And all I had to do was hire some salespeople and things would be great. And I projected this amazing success. But it turns out that writing the product yourself actually helps you sell it too. So when I hired my very first 3 salespeople, I still remember Brad, Diane, and Anna were the first 3 people we hired. I started to train them during the day. And so I'd spend 8 to 5 training them. I'd start working on the product writing after 6, and we began to scale from there. And so that was a hard period with a whole lot of work. And there was many setbacks. Things didn't work as fast. The projections were never as good as you wanted them to be. But at the same time, we did have success. We worked through it. We were able to scale that organization from 3, we moved to 10 people. From 10 people, we moved to 50. Look, it took 10 years to really get up to the 100 people that I thought I'd have in my second month. But, we did manage to work through that phase. And I think the message I'd give to people is expect things not to work just like you'd seen. Expect things to be broken, and expect to iterate, and expect to work through it. And if you go in with that expectation, and you go in with resilience, and you go in with confidence, you are set up to have success. So lessons I learned, across this phase of unrelenting persistence and 10 years of trying to generate let's call it a scalable and systematic process to consistently generate revenue was really, the first and early goal. So some of the things I learned was, I think, the importance of just-in-time research. As an entrepreneur, it was fully and completely out of the question that we could hire experts or consultants in things like marketing or strategy or branding and what have you. And so one of the things that I learned was the art of just-in-time research. Every time I read a book, I always set a time limit. It's usually 3 hours to 4 hours for a business book. I'll read the introduction, I'll read the conclusion, I'll read the model. I skip all the case studies, and within, let's call it 3 to 4 hours, I finish a book. I will try and read through 2 to 3 books on a given topic, and by the end of that, let's call it day or two, you can develop enough of a knowledge base to more effectively tackle all the projects and all the things that have to come in. So if you're going to become an entrepreneur, I'd say work on that skill of just-in-time learning. The second thing I learned during this phase of unrelenting persistent is you need to build a team you can afford and one you love working with. Early on, unless you're super well capitalized by some, angelic VC that wants to shower you with riches, it's very important to build capabilities at a reasonable cost. During this phase of building, you're doing a lot of continual collaborative problem solving with everyone on your team. What I've learned hiring people over the last 27 years is I've had way more success promoting internal people than I have hiring externally. There's 10% of the time external people will bring incredible results at the end because they bring insight, they bring expertise, and sometimes they just really will turn the business around. But external people also have a much higher failure rate than someone competent on your team that that you've worked with before, that understands the business. And so I highly recommend, wherever possible, hiring for talent early and promoting internally has been very effective for me. And the final thing I think I learned during this phase is that it's really important to have confidence first. I got a lot of feedback early on. Well, who are you to advise businesses about technology? What is it that you know? And having the confidence and the resilience is a really important skill set. So as you consider and tackle the idea of starting your own business and scaling it, I'd encourage you to, first and foremost, focus on resilience as the number one skill. The third phase for me is really about a phase I call value above everything, which is really about investing in building a fantastic product. In the end, customers, whether they're in the technology field or in the retail field, any space, it's really all about the product. And while early on it's important to have some sort of revenue engine to drive let's call it sustain the business, what really drives success and what really scales an organization is an obsession with customer value and continually investing in building a better mousetrap, whatever your mousetrap is. That to me is how you have true and enduring success. So for us at Infotech, it is a culture that is focused on what we call 4X member value. Every year, how do we 4X our member value? What are the projects, what are the initiatives that will help customers drive more value from our service? And so that is, I believe, a central theme for any organization that's been successful. I think they've built a better product. I think most industries, whether it's roads, whether it's light bulbs, you name the industry, there is a better product, there is a way to innovate. And so to me, focus on building great value for customers has to be a true north for any organization that wants to scale significantly. Our story has been, 27 years, and I won't bore you with like all the different phases and all the different evolutions that we've gone through from our humble beginnings as a newsletter. But there were definitely a number of stages. As we grew, I was obsessed about how we could build a better product, how we could create more value for our customers. And so we continued to evolve as an organization. We ended up focusing on methodologies. So how can we provide tools, templates, and step-by-step instructions that would help IT leaders execute on their key technology projects? So whether it was building an IT strategy, creating a disaster recovery plan, buying an ERP platform, or negotiating with Salesforce or negotiating with Microsoft. These are all of the examples of the kind of projects we'd help people with. And what we ended up doing is focus on what are the tools, what is a finished template, and what is the methodology and steps to help people have success with their key projects. And so as an organization, we continued to do that. We continued to work on that. And over time, we continued to add people to our research organization. I remember, frankly, probably my most successful moment in the history of the whole company was the time that I went from having to write this newsletter from hell every 2 weeks to having enough salesperson people that I could actually hire this person named Jen Parekh about 25 years ago, who actually helped me write this newsletter from hell. And actually having some help every 2 weeks to do that was an amazing success. From there, of course, we've continued to grow. We hired 20 analysts. We've moved our price points up. At this point, we have over 600 analysts today worldwide. Finally, the final phase here is growth and the ability to scale. As you begin to scale, you really need to evolve your own skill set continually. I've found that myself, I've been the solution and the bottleneck to our growth on an ongoing basis. From the start, I've been very hands-on. I've always worked directly with customers or directly with the product teams. I believe in stapling yourself to the order and seeing to the details as the path to success. That worked really well when we had 100 people. It still worked fine when we had 500 people. With 1,500 people now, it does not work at all. And it's essential to build and develop your own team. What I found over this last phase is that things shift from being an individual contributor to being focused on building systems, focusing on processes, and ultimately the bottleneck is always training and the talent and the people that you have on the team. The other lesson I've learned during this growth stage is around people. People at the end of the day are the most important part of the organization. It's the reason I still work today, is ensuring that the people who have believed and stayed with me over 20 years have a successful outcome. And growing that team of people that work with you, I think is one of the most satisfying parts of growing a business. The thing that I'd warn you about, or the mistake I made most often over the last 5 years, is really with executives. Hiring senior executives is probably one of the hardest things. They're all good at a 4-hour interview, 2-hour interview. And having mistakes at the C level, whether it's a chief marketing officer, chief finance officer, that can be pretty damaging if you don't have the right fit, you don't have a person, that's maybe a little too a jerk to work with. These things can be hugely damaging to the organization. So one of I've made lots of mistakes in that space. One of the pieces of advice I give is we continually hire now into the VP level, and we'll hire a couple people to the VP level and only promote to the C level. And that's really helped us, I think, make sure when we hire net new executives, we know what we're getting. Anyways, wrapping up, take risks, dream big, start now, work hard. If anyone's paying attention, the answer is always 42. I did save my best piece of advice for last. Use the handrail and be careful on the stairs.
Wow, just an absolutely incredible story. I had actually not ever heard the early stage story of Infotech, so that was kind of fun. And I think Joel standing here today, just days after his accident, really is a testament to this. This is the type of entrepreneur that we have in this city and the type that takes things to a whole new level. I am very excited to move to the second part of our program now, which tends to be some of the favorite part of you as our audience, and that is our panel. Today, our panel moderator is Jennifer Slay. Jennifer is a multi-award-winning speaker as well as a recipient of the prestigious Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for her community work. Her speeches are memorable, entertaining, and dynamic. She has spoken for educational institutions, businesses, and companies like Western, McMaster, TD, and Lerner's Law Firm, to name a few. With a world-class speaking format, your audience will laugh, cry, think, and act on everything Slay. A graduate of Western, King's, and McMaster universities, Jennifer has 2 bachelor's and a master's degree. She is a certified trainer in extended disc and trained in EMDR therapy. She has spent 2 decades speaking, coaching, and counseling to support people in achieving the best version of themselves. Most recently, she was asked to be the host of a community television show, What's Up London, after co-producing an award-winning show called Melanated View. In December of 2022, Jennifer became the Director of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Decolonization at King's University College. Now, everyone, please join me as I welcome back to the stage Allison, Asha, Pam, joined by the moderator, Joel's already here, and joined by the moderator, Jen.
I'm hoping, is this on? Yeah, okay, great. Well, wow, I just have to repeat what Melissa said. Well, it was amazing. And due to time, I'm going to jump to our general type questions. We had a whole plan, so just so that you know. But there are some words that came up as you were each speaking. And Allison, one of the few of the words that I heard or that came up for me was opportunity, when there's a gap, fill it, passion, and give back. And I know that Indigenous peoples are 9 times more likely than non-Indigenous folks to start a business, and they're huge contributors to the economy. But at the same time, they face unique barriers to business development and scaling. So what are some of the barriers eSupply Canada has had to overcome on its path to scale? And what can the business community here in London do to address these barriers and better support Indigenous businesses?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think one of the main barriers that we focused first that I touched on a little bit was just trying to convince or persuade potential new customers to take a chance on us. And we may be smaller, we may not be the same vendor that you're used to working with for 10 plus years, but we are capable, we can fulfill, and we can offer really great customer service. So having a company or organization take a chance on us has been hard and a barrier, as well as gaining access to capital to scale is hard as a diverse business. And one thing that businesses in London can do to help is really support your diverse businesses. Like ultimately, that's what it comes down to. You can talk about it all day long, but until you move forward and actually support that business in any capacity, that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Asha, the words that came were create impact, which, I mean, saving lives, how do you top that? But belief, persistence, and adaptability, that has equaled success, right? And so it's no secret that women are underrepresented in STEM, especially racialized women. So have you encountered challenges as a business leader in this space by virtue of being a racialized woman? And if so, how have you navigated these challenges?
Yes, thank you. Is this on? Okay, great. So yes, thank you for the question. And I would love to say I've never faced anything like that, of course. But unfortunately, I have, and that is just how it is. I will say, I tend to have the view of we can't control that it's going to happen, but we can control how we react to it. So I really try to focus on that. And, those are all opportunities for growth, whether it's for me, for the other side, for both of us. And it doesn't always happen that everyone learns from it. I can tell you that much. But that is my approach to dealing with those situations. And I want to say, I personally, I feel very lucky. It doesn't happen all the time. I really, it's not something that is a focus by any means, and it hasn't happened a lot. But I find it harder, and I'm sure you can all appreciate this, when it's people that are closer to you. And I know that it's not intentional. I hope it's never intentional from anyone, but it's a little easier to have thicker skin from people you don't know. And the people that are closer to you, and even when you know their intentions are good, and something happens, and you're like, oh, you don't even realize what you just said or what you just did, and how that might make someone feel. Those are a little harder to address because it's somebody closer to you. But I am a firm believer in growth from truth. And so I tend to have those harder discussions. I will have those, conversations that might be a little tough, in hopes that it is going to help both sides grow.
Response is everything. Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you. Pam. The words that came were risk, curiosity, positivity, think outside the box, and passion. E-waste is a major issue around the world, and refurbishing is a great solution, as evidenced by the booming global used computer industry. So how much of your success in scaling is owed to an ability to identify and respond to societal needs?
So can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. So refurbishing was one of our biggest growth factors in providing what was needed at that point. That was one of the reasons we got into refurbishing, and that was about 8 years ago. We scaled our business substantially. That right now is 60% of what we do now, and we do it really well. We managed to get onto, obviously, climate control, recycling, saving the planet. So refurbishing was an excellent way in supporting, society, what was needed then within the community. So we actually took recycling as refurbishing and recycling as a big part of our new mission to provide, with inflation, expensive computers, students coming in, refugees, people coming in, students not being able to afford $1,200 laptops. We started bringing in laptops that were a year or 2 years old. We refurbished them, and we refurbished them really, really well. We made them basically look like brand new. Like I could literally bring a refurbished laptop and a brand new laptop, and you would have a hard time guessing which is new, which is used. We partnered up with Microsoft. We became a Microsoft authorized refurbisher. We put on brand new Office licenses and Windows licenses, right? And we started distributing them across the globe. So refurbishing today, we are the #1 North American refurbisher, refurbishing computers, packaging them, sending them around to every retail store. You'll see our products in Best Buy, Staples, and Costco.
Joel, I found your honesty so refreshing. You can have it all, but you can't have it all at once. Love that. And the words that came up were opportunity, honesty, persistence, confidence, and gumption, right? Now, you founded Infotech in 1997 with just a small group of employees, and now, as mentioned, over 1,000 employees, offices in Canada, US, Australia, global membership of over 30,000 clients. Being cutting edge is risky. Were there any new directions that did not pan out? And if so, how were those risks mitigated?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it happens all the time, to be frank. So right now, AI is a huge thing. For us right now, organizationally, IT departments are massively being affected by the advent of AI. It's having a huge impact on programmers, on infrastructure, on security. And so that's creating let's call it a major point of risk, for us as an organization. How do we adapt? How do we live in an AI world? How do we adjust our product quickly? And so this one's hopefully going to be a success. I'm very confident in that. In terms of things, in the past, we are constantly reinventing ourselves, and I've had enough success, and many projects have gone well, but certainly enough that haven't. The one that comes to mind to me is software reviews. I was just L.E.A.D. So, we had a business that I had conceived of and planned and was really excited about, and frankly, we were beat to market because of the demands. And so, G2 is now the famous peer review technology sort of site. So, look, at the end of the day, you're not going to win them all. You're not going to about 100%. Every initiative that you plan is not going to work the way you think it will. Again, I still believe in resilience. I still believe in iteration, as long as you're not in the medical device field. But overall, it's part of, I think, being any kind of entrepreneur, that there's going to be ups and downs, and you have to adjust to them.
Thank you. So the pandemic presented a number of challenges for businesses, and in that regard serves as a great example of how flexibility and adaptability are key to business sustainability. Many businesses struggled to survive, but tech businesses tended to different challenges. Allison, eSupply Canada started in 2019 and was really established during the pandemic. What were some of the challenges and opportunities?
I'll start with opportunities. Right away, we had to shift focus on supplies to sell. And one opportunity that arose was PPE, both disposable masks, gloves, things of that nature, opened up a really new and large opportunity for us to start selling those things. Challenges would just be, we sell office supplies. People aren't going to the office. They're not buying a lot of that. So we just had to quickly adapt to the supplies that we would sell and what we were used to selling, and make quick changes and evolve as the situation evolved.
Yes. There's an old Chinese proverb, and it says, the strongest tree in the forest is not the oak, but the bamboo, because when the strong winds come, the oak will break, whereas the bamboo will bend and get back up. And so when I hear all of you speak, actually, that's what I'm hearing, that adaptability and the flexibility is so important when you're moving forward, especially during the pandemic, when it's like, okay, what's happening? We don't know what's going on. Our plans are different. Pam, as a distributor of computer products at a time when they were no doubt in high demand, as so many shifted to remote work, how did you navigate meeting demand with the supply chain issues that existed due to manufacturing shutdowns and staffing shortages?
So COVID was a shocker for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. So at that point, when it first came out, we didn't know whether we could stay open. I didn't even know whether my staff were going to come in because everybody was working from home. I'm running a manufacturing company. You can't work from home and build computers and get boxes out to distribution, right? So it was quite confusing to know whether we were going to be open. When then, guess what? We were considered an essential business because we were providing Best Buy staples. We were providing the retail platforms. All the kids got sent home. They all needed Chromebooks, right? So Chromebooks were the biggest sellers. Luckily, we have over $6 million worth of inventory at given time in our warehouse. So guess what? My inventory started moving really fast because the schools, every school board in Ontario is one of our clients. So Peel School Board, Thames Valley, Muskoka School Board, they were ordering Chromebooks like crazy. That was the biggest year of my entire career. COVID time was, yeah.
The opportunity was there.
It was fast. It was really big, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Asha, similarly, this was a time when health tech was booming. So how did you navigate demand against the supply chain issues?
Yes, we had an interesting situation with the pandemic that actually shaped how we operate today, and we are lucky that we have a device that is everything's relative, but I'm going to say simple. It's easy to use, and it is something that we can by and large, teach virtually. So, of course, we have a physical product that we ship out to customers, but honestly, most of our training, our meetings, everything we do from behind a screen. The challenges of the supply chain were definitely something that impacted us because especially with these, not beyond the pandemic, with war and supply chain issues there. And honestly, it was all about managing that, buffering, making sure we probably had to spend a lot more than we wanted to up front, but we had to make sure that we had taken that into account to be able to continue to supply. The hardest thing, and it's not a fear that I think about a lot, but can you imagine us being in a situation where people need our device and we can't ship it out? I'm like, somebody is, and I'm like not trying to be over dramatic here, but somebody's literally going to die because we don't have a supply. Like that, I could not ever live with that. And so we did compensate for our components and just putting things in place to make sure that we were able to supply our demand.
Thank you. Thank you. Joel, in 2022 London Inc. magazine article, you are quoted for stating that the pandemic was an enormous challenge because of changes both to Infotech's daily operations and in the expectations of its members, all of whom were scrambling to adapt as well. We worked flat out really hard to create pandemic playbooks to support our members. Can you tell us how you adapted?
Yeah, it was a super busy time. Again, no one was really expecting this whatsoever. It was relatively easy for us to adapt operationally and deliver from home. We write research for a living, and so that can be done effectively remotely. The big thing that we did is I think we really just asked our whole research team to drop what they were doing, switch topics, and work a ton of overtime so we could immediately answer all these organizations from cities to NASA to calling us saying, well, what do we do, right? And so it was, the first 4 weeks of the pandemic was probably one of the busiest times that we've had as an organization. We were talking to every member. They all wanted playbooks on, whether it's HR policies right through to, IT, how to, provision working from home. So it was a super busy time. I think it was just a testament to our staff that they were willing to drop everything they're working on and put in a ton of overtime to try and rise to that occasion.
Thank you. So we've come to the end. We've come to the end already. As Graham makes his way back up, one sentence to the audience about how to move forward, how to push forward. Just one sentence. We'll start.
it's already been said, but do something you're passionate about. That really can drive everything. I'm the first to say I am not, who was I to start a business as a PhD biomedical engineer, but that passion can really drive you to heights you could never imagine.
Thank you.
I'll say do something where you're able to give back in some sense. That's really the most important thing.
Thank you.
I would say believe in yourself. Don't ever give up, and believe that success can be there, can be achieved if you have the passion and the desire. And again, do something that you really enjoy. Don't do it just for the money. Do it because you really love that career and that passion. Yeah, just be passionate.
The benefits are worth the risk, and I advise you, if you're thinking about it all, to do it now.
Thank you. Can we give a hand to our panel, please?
Let's start by giving a big round of applause to Melissa Maloney of Tech Alliance and All Women Lead. You just bring so much energy to a room, we can't thank you enough. And how about Jennifer Slade? Jen has partnered with us before in these sorts of events, and what you do is, it's an art, it's a science, it's sort of everything all together, and we're just so grateful that you've agreed to step in and help us with this amazing event. Thank you, Jen. And can we give our panelists a big round? Pam, Asha, Allison, and Joel. Now, I do have to make, Pam, did I hear you say you're an English graduate? Yeah, an English, like literature.
From you, yes.
Yeah, well, me too.
Oh,
so
okay.
I have to sort this. I always have to draw attention to it that there is a future for those of us who
there
have
is.
English degrees. Okay, and don't believe that that the humanities won't get you somewhere in life. I think increasingly they will. Anyway, now also want to thank our friends here at Wolf Performance Hall up in the back, who helped us set up and did this wonderful event. And last, of course, you've seen our sponsors' names up there, but in particular, let me single out the folks from L.E.A.D, who are huge supporters of the Chamber and were our principal supporter today. 3 or 4 quick announcements. Next Thursday is our mega Business After 5. It's hosted by the Beer Kitchen at 100 Kellogg Lane. So how much fun can that be? It's sold out in terms of our exhibitors, so look forward to that. And then in our hugely popular Ask the Expert series, on the 23rd of April, Learners is running a special session on franchise blueprints. So you can sign up on our website. We also have our Music Expo, the 2nd annual Music Expo, which is featuring Cowboy Junkies as our headliner. That's on Tuesday, May 9th. You can buy tickets through the website, so don't miss that. And then, of course, we have our Golf Classic coming up on the 17th of June. The last thing I wanted to say was that we do have a call for expressions of interest out into the community. We want to know if you're interested in joining our board or if you're interested in joining our governance committees and being part of the change that we are trying to accomplish both within our community and within our organization. So that's all there on the website too. Thank you for coming out this morning, and we'll hopefully see you at one of these other events. Have a great day.